If you're the type of player that likes rotting, stinking flesh rubbing ineffectually on itself, then this is the match for you, because it's vampire counts versus Nurgle, so lots of regenerating heal, meat bags, slapping each other around. That is the order of the day. This replay from Sage on Discord here. He's got Manfred von Karstein up in the air, got some zombies as a front line. Yeah, some Graveguard with weapons here, Crypt Horrors, a Necromancer with Unholy Lodestone, and Curse of Undeath, or whatever it's called. Master of the Dead, that's right. Or lots of passive healing, Blood Knights, a Dire Pack as well. To support, Tamur-can't, going to be on the opposite side here with a bunch of Marauders, some Pestigors, looks like one of them, yep, bunch of Marauders in the front line, Plague Ogres, Rotting Riders out on the side, and a Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle. By the time many of you guys are watching this, the tournament, South Sea Mercenary League qualifier number 2 tournament probably would have already ended, possibly. Some of you might be seeing this before, because it is going up night before, but yeah, another tournament in store for you guys. Be sure to check that out in the link to the description below. If you are somehow living under a rock on this channel, you haven't heard about my tournament series happening. Yeah, I've got a Land Battles Caps tournament series currently ongoing. This is not from that, but this is just a community replay. But be sure to check that out if you are interested. And we'll be live streaming that tomorrow if you are seeing this beforehand, or I guess today, at 10 a.m. U.S. Mountain Daylight Time. So, Tamur-can't going to be kind of feinting in the front line. The one problem with Tamur-can't here is that he's not Kugath. And Kugath is just strictly better in this matchup. Any matchup where Tamur-can't is good, Kugath is most likely just strictly better. Especially in a matchup, though, where that AoE damage of the Mortis effect that Kugath carries, very good, not to mention, you know, he brings your caster and lord at once. You can go just a little bit wider to try and combat that chaff. Let's see here, though. Frontline engagement getting underway. Got the mobility out on the side here. Rotting Riders look like they're going to get a nice engagement on the Blood Knights. Let's zoom in close on these Elite Cav. Ooh, it looks like the Rotting Riders actually do not get their charge, which is pretty painful. Also, only 80 armor means they will take substantial damage. Yeah, look at that shock damage from those Blood Knights. But of course, they do have that damage resistance, so after the charge bonus wears off, they should be okay. Reinforcing Bile Trolls as well. Manfred also sweeping over there in the front line. It's a big, nice, wide engagement. Tamur-can't getting mixed up here with his Ogres. Should be doing okay. They do have to fight these green Crypt Horrors, which I have to say, for the vampire color scheme, fighting Nurgle, this is a little bit confusing, because they do look like they could be on the same team, but that's okay. Let's keep the banners up, so we can tell them apart that way. Yeah, Plague Ogres fighting just fine here. You can see they're beating back the Crypt Horrors pretty sufficiently, at least for right now. But out on the far side here, Blood Knights are faring pretty badly against the combined might of the Bile Trolls, Rotting Riders, also Fleshy Abundance, and Spirit Leech kind of competing for their HP, pulling it down, bringing it back up. Mostly just damaging their heal cap more than anything. Blood Knights also a little bit in tactical reserve. Come around finally on this far side here. They're looking for perhaps a rear charge opportunity or to help support the other Blood Knight. Yeah, a little bit late to do that, but still can perhaps get a nice anti-large situation there. Nice rear charge here as well in the Plague Ogres. Since these are the anti-large, Great Weapon Plague Ogres, the Dire Pack will actually do very well on a real rear charge here. Do some decent damage, nothing too insane, but with everything kind of combining, other than Tamur-can't, this engagement ends up turning on the Nurglings. More Spirit Leech there on those Rotting Riders as the next unit of Blood Knights queues itself up to fight. Got Tamur-can't, though, and the other Bile Trolls still around, so value-wise, this isn't maybe the best trade for vampire counts, but this whole time they are mopping up that frontline engagement pretty effectively. Marauders getting some kills on zombies and stuff is fine. Nice evade, too. Does still get hit by that suffocating contact effect, which is kind of the main point of the breath, right? But minus 10 melee attack, that it's not actually reflected on their unit card? Interesting. I don't know if that's a bug, or maybe it's actually not having an intended effect. I'll have to investigate that a little bit further. But anyway, yeah, Tamur-can't just kind of looming. Trying to find a good engagement here. Hasn't really taken any damage so far. In terms of direct threats here, I mean, Blood Knights are certainly quite threatening. Manfred himself also, in a pinch, can fight. He's got decent combat stats, 70 attack, certainly. Quite decent, but yeah, just some disgusting blobs right now. Necromancer just cackling as he has a grand old time healing everything in an AoE. Nurgle doesn't have any passive healing here. It didn't actually bring like War Shrine, right? Which is another, again, if there's a matchup to take the Nurgle War Shrine to get some passive healing, this is probably one you could make an argument for, certainly. Even though it's pretty expensive, given, you know, the cost you're going to pay for it. It's a single entity that doesn't really do anything besides heal, to be honest. It also is not going to die, necessarily. It's not like at risk of getting killed, but, yeah, it's a little bit weird in that way. I don't know, maybe it's actually not worth taking in this matchup, but I would think Kugath plus that thing in a sort of a heal death blob, with maybe some of the RORs that have good, like, other drain effects or, you know, regeneration traits, and that could be a build that would be very tough for the vampire counts to crack, I think. I would probably give Nurgle an advantage in this matchup with such a build. But Tamur-can't is not that, and yeah, he's here all by himself now at this point. He does have a handful of Bile Trolls still backing him up, some Marauders also fighting out there on the flanks. But yeah, balance power still relatively even, but for the most part, Manfred's got this battlefield on lock. He's still got a number of Graveguard Great Weapons here, still fighting, taking out those Pestigores, Crypt Horrors, plus the Tithe, and the Necromancer here, all just healing themselves and sustaining damage. Gonna be a lot for Tamur-can't to have to get through. And the Blood Knight's still the one unit with basically full HP. See the dichotomy there of the one unit kind of dying, getting sacrificed, arguably. The other Blood Knight doing just fine. Being used well here. And getting nice sort of rear charge damage on those Marauders as they're all strung out. Manfred's going to activate his combat prowess against Sorcerer here. Oh, here comes, oh, the big boy, though. Big old charge, and, you know, it actually whiffs. It doesn't actually do any damage. Yeah, somehow that charge animation fully whiffed. That attack actually did hit, but, yeah, Tamur-can't have a little bit of a tough time. That animation also hits there. A little bit slow attack animations, but still, at least he's getting some hits. Was able to screen this Chaos Sorcerer and have him peel up and around, get in, try and snipe the Necromancer. There's two Necromancers. Okay, wow. Yeah, both with Unholy Lodestones. Means there is a little bit of overlap, but basically just gives you a wider area of passive healing, being able to affect more units at the same time. But maybe could do with a Balefire, actually, on one of them. If there is a matchup to take Balefire, again, magic damage against certain demonic units, like Kugath specifically, is I'm thinking of, would be pretty good. And then, of course, the flaming damage as well to lessen healing. Yeah, I might actually say switch one of those Corpse Carts out for a Balefire and basically just run them together. But I also understand, you know, with the wide army, having a bigger area to broadcast that. Vampire counts also arguably should probably take a Mortis Engine in this matchup, even though it can be tricky to protect at times. You can kind of use that to your advantage and bait your opponent out to try and take unfavorable engagements, and then also gives you another option in that sort of degenerate blobbing drain heal fight. Gives another damage source for vampire counts if they're facing somebody like Kugath, but Kugath is definitely better than the Mortis Engine. It's much tankier. He's a Lord and Caster all in one. Quite a solid combatant and just overall disgusting. Nurgle Sorcerer here getting caught by the Dire Pack. Suffering quite badly for it. Meanwhile, the Blood Knights are doing enough. Meanwhile, Manfred absconded, so he doesn't get hit by Tamur-can't's effect here. That Beast of the Maggot Lord, yeah. Manfred definitely far enough away that that is not going to proc, so the Blood Knights can just focus on killing Tamur-can't. Everything else hits army losses, and that's pretty much game over. Yeah, Sage doing the right thing, keeping Manfred far away so he doesn't take that unnecessary damage. But it's definitely a fun one for sure. Yeah, these two factions, again, I would say sort of unorthodox builds on both sides to a degree, but definitely both the Unholy Lodestones are fairly good in this matchup. The Blood Knights also, even the one that doesn't, well, it doesn't quite pay for itself, but still has a decent performance despite getting horribly killed in that matchup. And it did face some kind of healing and elite enemies, so you would expect some inflated values on both sides, to be honest, and on all units. But yeah, overall, very solid performance from Sage there. Again, I don't totally hate components of this build. I think the Rotting Riders are actually probably a pretty decent counter. Two Blood Knights here, more so I would say than the Plague Ogres, because they do have the armor, which actually matters quite a bit against against Blood Knights. But yeah, there's basically no reason to not take Kugath here. And that's what we're going to finish with, because... I mean... Yeah, I mean, the reason to not take Kugath is because you want to have fun, I guess, but... Yeah, I mean, Pestilent Decay, in and of itself, plus his massive HP pool, there's an argument to be just those two things, right? But then you take everything else into consideration. He's got his own healing he can take here, melee defense, again, these extra ones, if you have the funds for them, you can take. But honestly, just kitting him down as cheap as possible and then taking as many units definitely is the way to go, I would say. But Tamur-can't's fun, just never going to be as good as Kugath, unfortunately, just by designs, unless they radically change this design. I mean, if they were to make him anti-large, I think it would actually give him like more of an identity, because you'd actually take him in maybe matchups where, like against the Dreadsaurian or other big spaghetti monsters that can actually kill Kugath in melee, potentially. There are not many, but there's a handful of matchups maybe where that could happen. Arguably, you take Kugath there if he's anti-large, but as he is right now, just doesn't really have a role, in my opinion. It's just worse than Kugath at basically doing the same thing. So hopefully you enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.